The myth that chickens absolutely need grains needs to be put to rest once and for all. You see, unlike our cows, sheep, goats, and horses, they are omnivores, not strict herbivores. They can absolutely get the bulk of their nutrition from a protein-rich source. In the same way that humans do very well on the Atkins or carnivore diet, so can chickens. Because here's the thing. No single grain can hold all of the nutrients that an animal, or a human for that matter, needs to get by. But if a source is high enough in protein, it is always high in every other vitamin and mineral too. It's got the A's, the B's, the B12s, the lysine, you name it. If it's a protein-based source, in other words, an animal or insect product, it'll have everything an animal needs. Pigs are omnivores too, but they're a little different than birds. Their growth is reliant on putting on fat. Even your leaner, grazing swine need huge amounts of carbohydrates to put on the weight they need to be healthy and productive. But fowl aren't reliant on putting on lard. Chickens, ducks, turkeys, all of them consume minimal amounts of grain in the wild. So why should they be any different in captivity? Sure, we all like at least a little fat on a carcass, because who doesn't like a juicy, dripping roast on a Sunday after all? But don't worry, the composting method isn't just going to save your pocket on grain costs. It'll supply your birds with enough fat to keep that carcass quality right where you need it to be. The composting feeding system isn't exactly new either. Before the Industrial Revolution, chickens were kept because they were so cost and labor effective to feed with scraps and other animal waste. Or at least the bugs and critters that manure brings with it. Don't worry, your bugs won't be eating poop. Quite the opposite. Let's explain. Just chucking a bunch of manure onto a pile will draw in most of the bugs you'll need, sure. But your hens, even though they'll do well to live off insects and worms for 80% of their diets, they still need at least a little more variation. Besides, if you're going to have them make compost for you while they're feeding themselves, you'll need to encourage them to scratch and turn that pile over for you. For a household flock, your kitchen scraps will be more than sufficient to supply them with the necessary greenery that they'll need, and then some. And don't be too worried about separating out your seeds to avoid having volunteer pumpkins all over your raised beds. Those girls are going to consume every seed, skin, and scrap you throw at them. And by adding earthworms to the bottom of your pile, you'll give them all of the incentive to dig and spread that pile for optimal decomposition. Having a worm farm on the side isn't very labor-intensive at all. All they need is shade and some kitchen waste every now and then, and they'll happily reproduce at alarming rates. Most people just add a spadeful of worm farm soil to the bottom of the bed once a week or so, keeping the populations booming. Keeping a worm farm on the side solves 3 problems for you. First, it's not safe to throw meat scraps onto your compost pile. That'll just attract rodents and create a festering mess that will get your chickens sick. But they are perfectly safe to feed to your worms, keeping the protein and lysine up in those critters so that the birds who are going to eat later get the most bang for their buck. Secondly, as we mentioned before, worms are one of the best sources of nutrients and protein that you could ask for. And finally, they're also going to speed up the decomposition inside your manure pile. And there really is no limit to what you can add to your compost. Garden waste, kitchen scraps, manure, grass clippings, leaves, it all goes into the pile. Just like regular compost would. Now, for the standard household flock, your personal kitchen and garden refuse will be more than sufficient to keep your hens happy. But if you're keeping a flock that reaches above 50, you might want to talk to some local restaurants and food banks about waste that they might want to get rid of. If it's not for human use, they'll be more than happy to get it off their hands for free. And you might just get so much extra that your hogs and goats get something out of the deal too. And since most of your compost pile will be manure, if you don't have enough to make up the bulk of your pile with animal waste, there shouldn't be a shortage of people around you who have livestock that can add to your supply for free. Even the local stable will be just too grateful if you took some of their stable waste away for them. Stable waste is ideal. It comes with hay clippings that adds very valuable brown material to your compost. Bovine and pork waste actually comes with quite a bit of undigested grain and grass seeds. Your chickens will be getting more grains in at the end of the day than you'd think was possible. One last tip is to add some corn or grains to the pile. Yes, we know, we said no grains, but it's mostly to encourage your chicken to dig into their workspace. A single cup for every 12 to 15 chickens is more than enough. Or you can even just hide a few cobs of corn inside the mound for them. Chickens thrive best when they can root and scratch to their heart's content. They'll be so enthralled with their piles loaded with treasures that they won't even stray away from it. Fencing them in will only be necessary to keep predators at bay. Why on earth would they bother to venture into the wilderness when they have all of the food and the fun right there on that steaming play park? And if you're wondering what amount of space you'll need, don't worry about doing any mental maths for this one. Whatever size your flock's coop is, you won't need more space than that. So unless you're keeping hundreds of chickens, you don't have to give up acres of land for the process to work out perfectly well for you. All of the fowl species are naturally inclined to hunt for their food. They just do better when they're kept as close to their natural way of living as possible. Your chickens will be quieter, happier, and healthier the more you make it possible for them to scratch that predatory itch. It benefits the health and contentment of your birds in the long term, and therefore a better quality of life. Not to mention all that extra chicken poop that's being added to your compost, and a remarkable decrease in unwanted volunteer produce coming up in your organized garden beds. And it'll be a great way to diminish the smells associated with compost piles. It'll probably remove odors entirely. This system is low maintenance, cost-effective, and it'll be the absolute best way to optimize your chicken's health overall. There's no reason that you shouldn't be trying this yesterday already. Your girls will be thankful for all the entertainment that it brings them anyway. Or have you been letting your chickens feed themselves while they're producing rich, dark compost for you before? You know the drill. Let us know how it worked out for you in the comments below. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe before you leave. Or if you're not done watching yet, why not check out some of our other videos on your screen right now? Until next time, keep learning about the fascinating, cost-effective, and better-yielding world of regenerative farming. Cheers.